Welcome to yet another interesting module of Omega series. And here we are talking about, definitely the module is all about communicating data and communicating insights primarily. We are just getting warmed up actually. We are getting prepared for the demos, for the use of data stories and how we actually take this entire section from a piece of data, just like a piece of land, and how do you actually make your house and then you make the landscape and everything. That's what we are going to just see over here. So imagine I'm talking about, let's say if you talk from UAE's perspective, of Dubai's perspective, you know that there's a lot of development that has happened on land as well as in sea as well. So what they have done is to do this amazing, let's say if you talk from Palm Jumeirah's perspective or if you talk from the World Island perspective, what they have done, they have put the sand over there. But before putting the sand, they have actually bounded that area. So mark that area, and then otherwise if you just put sand will just erode, right? So this is what we are doing actually right now. We are just preparing that sand, we are preparing that land. And then what we will do the foundation part of it. And believe me, once you actually start making your house, when you have the design and plan, you just imagine, in my session, you will find a lot of, I would say examples from the real world. That's what my passion, because I have learned and because I have got such an experience with the outer world as well as the different kinds of organization, different types of domains and organizations, I can give you examples from all across, right? So what we are going to do in this particular module is creating data models for effective analysis and some kind of advanced BI techniques that we are going to see in this particular module. So let's move. So this is what talking about the advanced BI techniques. Identifying the business problem. So the core understanding is, you can definitely refer to the PPTs and then segments, but understanding of the business requirement and what we call it, the entire module is developed into something like this. We have first thing is the data exploration part, and then will be the data explanation part. Exploring is what? This is where you are actually finding the story. You're trying to find a story out of the data. And what is explanation? Definitely to tell the story. So first of all, you find the story and then you tell the story. Where you are finding that story from? Different segments of data. Whom you are telling that story to? To your audience, to CXOs, to your management, to entrepreneurs, to, let's say, anybody. It actually applies to anybody and everybody. As I said, data is getting democratized day by day. And it's very important from every citizen, every person on this planet to have understanding of the data. There are various companies actually for whom I am also doing training sessions. So amazing sessions and amazing companies who are actually on the way to create citizen data analysts. So just imagine an organization where everybody, be it a junior, be it a rookie, be it a senior management person, everybody is talking with data. So the language becomes data, the culture becomes data. No company, no power, I would say, can stop that company from growing actually. So that's the power of advanced analytics as well as BI, business intelligence, what we call it. So most of the time these components are interchanged actually. So we will stick to the plan, we will stick to the understanding of these terms, and then we will move on to the concepts of business intelligence. We are going to use Power BI as a tool, and this tool, as we say that, it all started, I would say, in 2010. So in 2010, actually Power BI had, we got Excel as a new component. In 2007, primarily, the concept of XML came into picture. So our XLS became XLSX, DocX became DocX. So Doc became DocX, PPT became PPTX, and the XML came into picture in 2007. That changed the world actually. And today also, the same landscape, the same concepts are being actually getting better and better as we speak. So in 2010, Excel came up with these 4 components, which was Power Query, and then we had the Power Pivot, and then we had Power View and Power Map. So out of this, Power Query and Power Pivot were actually for data exploration, and Power View and Power Map were actually for data explanation, for story building. So we will see in detail actually all these things in this entire session and journey. The idea is to, first of all, after you get the data, you normalize the data. You actually find the different components within the data. What are the facts and dimensions and stuff like this? We will talk about it in detail, and everything will be demo based. And then what we do is, if you talk from the perspective of statistical perspective, so first of all, you need to know the features that we have from the data. And this all things are actually standing on three components or three segments of data analytics. One, when we talk about visualizations and other things, when we discuss about that, we'll see that the first thing would be to find out the trends within the data. The second thing will be to identify the features of the data and actually find the correlation within the data. So let's say if the sales of ice cream is going high or down, it is going up and down. So has it got any kind of correlation with the temperature of the city, for example? Right? We know that it is there. But then I know that, okay, if the city, the temperature soars or the temperature goes high, my cold drinks or let's say ice cream sales will go high. I know that, but I know in a very vague term. What using data analytics we can do is we can actually find out that coefficient, that point, that okay, how much. So if the temperature of this city goes by 1 degree centigrade, let's say, or Fahrenheit, whichever pointer you take, then how much is the impact on my business? How much is the impact on my sales? So I say that 1 degree means $500. So now you know at least, it cannot happen with 1 month or 1 week of data. We have to have weeks and weeks of data, and then you can say that, okay, because we know the forecast of weather, right? That tomorrow how much will be the centigrade or Fahrenheit for this place. Then we can actually predict. We can predict the sale of these ice creams or cold drinks or some beverage like that. It's very important that the data is prepared properly. It's very important that the data is actually wrangled properly and it is actually modeled properly before we actually develop the visualizations. Now, we are talking about all these components, all these features. We are talking about all these small segments, but it all goes into the concepts of preparation, mining, analysis, extraction, and then finally the visualization part. Now, having said that, as I discussed, feature selection and model selection is very important while you are getting the data and you are trying to showcase the data, right? So what we will do is, I'll just show you an example of how data analysis works. And I'm not going to take you to Power BI per se, because Power BI is definitely the next module where we will be discussing from the beginning the concepts of Power Query and all these ETLs and all these things. But let me show you an amazing feature of data analytics and advanced BI features primarily. So for this reason, we have got an attrition data. Now, if I talk about this attrition data, actually this data we have taken from GitHub. So as you can see, this is GitHub's data, and this is how the data would look like. And when I actually started sessions, and then when I said that, okay, you know what, we are going to talk about, let's say, IBM's attrition data. So you said, and we are going to actually download IBM's data, attrition data. So some people were like, my God, what are you talking about? Why and how? And what are you saying? Why and how we should be touching IBM's data and attrition data for that matter? This is like secret data. I say, hold on. Let's understand this very clearly once and for all. So this is IBM's data. I know, and it is being populated like that. But the moment you remove the name of the person, the employee ID of the person, the gender of the person, let's say, for example, so you are actually what we call it as we call it as anonymous data. So when we do the data, we take it into the anonymous sector, then we can actually talk with the data And let me show you with the same data what we were able to do. This is the same data that you see in Excel format. So we just take, download, and then bring it to Excel. This is a CSV format. We bring the data, and then what happens is we start with the pivots. This is what the pivots would look like. But before we go to the pivot section, as I said that, okay, we are not talking about Power BI or analytics in Power BI per se. We are just talking about very simple analytics. So from the same data, I am going to show you. So what we did was we just developed a simple scatter plot. This is what we are going to see in Power BI as well as we proceed. But I just developed a simple chart which talks about the total working years and the years with the current manager. And we saw that there is hardly any correlation between these two. How did we say that? Because the correlation coefficient is only around 21%. And the higher it goes, the approach, if it is still 1, then 1 is actually the best. And this is, just 21%. So there is no as such correlation, but there is a positive correlation, which means that there is something, right, within the managers and the employees in this particular organization. There is some correlation between them. But I'm going to show you something very, very interesting over here. I said every data is valuable, every data point is variable. So what I'm going to take is, I'm just taking a screenshot of this particular place, and I love this explanation actually. So I'm going to make it a bit bigger and then look at this place. So the first thing first, this particular space is vacant. If this particular space is vacant, this means that the data is correct. I'll tell you how. Please understand these concepts. So if this particular space is vacant, which means that the total, if you talk from the perspective of, so this is the total, working years, and this is actually with the current manager. Now, it is not possible that a person has got only, let's say, 10 years in experience, and with the current manager, it is 15 years. Not possible, right? So it has to be 10 or less than 10 actually. It cannot be more than 10. So that's why if something was coming over here, which means that this data is not correct. So just by plotting one chart, you get to know that whether you should be spending your time with this particular file or not, or whether this particular data or not. So that is one segment and one indication that the data is valid, data is correct. Now, as I said that every component will tell you a story. Look at this particular component. So these are the people who are there, having a huge experience, let's say, but at the same time, they are also working under one manager for a long time. If you look at this cluster, if you look at these clusters, this is very interesting. So if you see the number of years in the organization and the experience actually is almost similar, which means that maybe IBM was their first job and they are still with the organization after 10, 15 years, 20 years, maybe. If you look at this particular segment of data, so you can see that, okay, their experiences vary, but they have just joined IBM maybe, or they have just changed their manager in IBM. So as I said, every cluster, you take this cluster, you take this cluster, you take this cluster, every cluster is talking. Every cluster is actually giving you a sense of analysis, what you can do. So ideally, you need to first of all identify how the data would look like. How, as I said, the correlation, and do we have any anomalies by the way over here? So that we need to check. And then finally, we do all the visualization. We tell the story. We start with the data and we start with the storytelling part. So that was actually, as I say, the end of this particular module. And please be with us. We are going to talk about the guided principles of conducting data analysis. This is again going to be a very interesting section primarily, and this is what is coming up next. Thank you so much for being with us, and hope to see you in the next module, in the next section. So I know that, okay, this is going better and better, and you are able to understand what data storytelling can do and how actually you can become a novice to a data magician. So be with me in this journey as I take you and as I handhold you from that stage, that early stage, to the magician stage. So be with me and you will see the difference. Thank you so much.